Hey guys, Languagehacker here, and we have just gotten, and by just I mean yesterday, but regardless, we have gotten a patch announcement. There's a balance patch coming next week that there was a blog post on the forums, and I'm going to go over and talk about what's being changed and what that means for the meta. Okay, so this is the forums blog post thingy. I'll post a link in the comments below, or in the description. There we go. You should comment, but this will be in the description, so you guys can take a look as well if you want to. But let's go through and talk about it. Hello, we will be making some card changes in a patch going out early next week that we wanted to let you know about. Blah 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 blah. Masters through Undercity next week. Cool. These are the cards that will be changing. Razor main Battleguard. The 2-mana 2/3 now becomes a 2-mana 2/2. Dawn Grasp for the Mage quest line is being changed from spell damage +3 to spell damage +2 for the rest of the game, which is quite a big change. And finally, Garrett is now only shuffling 2 bleeds into the deck instead of 3 bleeds. Oh, sorry, and a fourth thing. Renew. This was a buff. The other 3 were nerfs. The Renew is going back to 1 mana. So let's talk about what this means. First, we'll talk about what the implications of this are. So, Battleguard, very strong mana cheat. Some crazy openings from Druid become kind of problematic when they're unanswered, and then the game just snowballs from there. Reducing it to 2 health is good. It helps tempo matchups. You can't value trade with it because it dies. It dies to now Touch the Nathrezim. It dies to First Flame. It dies to anything that deals 2 damage now, basically, which means that it's going to be easier to kill. However, I still think it's going to be pretty strong. I don't think that's going to stop Druid from being played, but it tweaks the stats a little bit. Fine. Next up, Dawn Grasp. This is, I think, a popular one that I've heard people ask for in terms of stuff to nerf, Quest Mage. So Quest Mage having only 2 spell damage for the rest of the game versus 3 is a big deal for more than one reason. And this addresses, to some extent, addresses some of the problem. Now, the problem wasn't necessarily that you had +3 spell damage in terms of damage output. The problem was that Spell Mage consistently is good at drawing the rest of their deck pretty quickly. And part of the reason for that is cards like Arcane Intellect, Springwater, and Cramp Session. And I don't think Arcane Intellect is something they want to change, and same thing with Springwater. Now, Cramp Session, they could have considered changing to be 3 mana, for example, but I think once the questline isn't going to be popular anymore, Cramp Session might still be kind of a good enough card at 2 mana, and changing Cramp Session to 3 mana, for example, would have also messed up any decks that are just running, tempo spell damagey stuff. Now, that being said, Cramp Session, I think, rotates before the questline anyways, so that's not super relevant, but I don't think Cramp Session was necessarily the fix they wanted to make. This, however, reduces some of the damage output, which means that you die slightly slower. But the more important thing is that it reduces card draw as well, because the natural Cramp Sessions in the deck now draw fewer cards, which is kind of the main reason. So it's not only the damage output is lessened, but also the consistency of the draw is lessened as well. And that, again, counts if you discover more Cramp Sessions too. It'll just reduce the amount of card draw that you're getting, which is one of the issues. Hopefully this tweak is enough as well. I can't imagine that it's not going to be that impactful, because it actually is quite a big deal when you consider 1 card. In some games, you barely scrape by, and then you come back with a Cramp Session, and having 1 less card on that Cramp Session that you come back with is actually going to be a big deal. You might actually gas out, which is one of the big things. Quest Mage didn't feel like it gassed out. Generally, you either kill them and they couldn't get their stuff online, or they just have everything and then they killed you. So hopefully this gives us a few more games where they just run out of stuff sometimes because they don't have enough card draw. So that should be good. Next up, Garrett. Now, Garrett Rogue is quite popular, and I imagine it'll still be around a little bit, but this is a pretty big hit to the deck. So let's say you have 2 Garretts, which means 8 instances of damage. The 2 instances immediately when you play the cards, and then the 6 bleeds that got shuffled into the deck. So that's 8 instances of damage. This gets reduced to 6 instances because you lose 2 of the bleeds, which means that you lose 25% of your damage, which is quite a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is not because, oh wow, a quarter of the damage is gone. The reason it's a big deal is now that with 4 spell damage, let's say a Guild Trader and 2 Aug Merchants, 4 times 6, the 6 instances of damage would be 24. 24 is not 30, so it's not actually full OTK, which means that you need 5 spell damage. 5 times 6 is 30, and you need 5 spell damage, which means like a Guild Trader, 2 Aug Merchants, and a Shadow Step to do 30, which means that you wouldn't have lethal through armor. Now, Rogue does get chip damage and they have dagger as well. They could discover some other stuff, but the consistency of the deck will be reduced now because they'll still have crazy Octobot field contact stuff, which I'm upset about. I think those are the problem cards. However, this probably reins in Garrett Rogue enough while still leaving space for the other Rogue tools to be used, and maybe some tempo decks, or maybe a half combo Garrett deck where you just run perhaps one Garrett as a finisher, or maybe the double Garrett still sticks around and is just slower, which is also a good thing, because if the deck still does what it does and does 30 damage, but it comes down on turn 9, for example, that's just a theory. Like, I don't know how much slower it'll get now, but maybe turn 8, 9 would be more reasonable lethal outputs now. And still, that would require 30 damage, and you have to save a Shadow Step and both the Theurlog Merchants, which does limit the flexibility of the deck as well. So I think I like this change. I'm still upset that Octobot and Contact haven't been changed. I think those are very, very big problem cards. And I've been complaining about Secret Passage for ages now, but I've given up on the fact that they're going to nerf those. I still hope that, you know, they change Octobot Contact at some point, because I still think those are very, very big problems. And I think if you address those problems, you can leave Garrett as is. But regardless, happy that there's a change. That's good. Especially going into the Masters Tour Undercity that's coming up in, what is it, November 19th or something? Basically next weekend for those who are watching this as soon as the video comes out. This should change up the meta enough that we'll have a spicy Masters Tour, which I think I like as well. So those are the 3 nerfs. Relatively happy with them. I don't think we needed a huge overhaul in terms of, you know, 10 things changed. I've complained about Smite when it came out as well. But I think Smite is fun as a finisher. I'm just not happy that Smite can come off of Juggernaut. That's my main concern. And the fact that you can have Smite combos with Weapon Rogue and whatever. Different story. We can talk about that in a different video. Anyways, finally, Renew getting changed to 1 mana has several implications. One, Miracle Priest might become a bit more playable. Wand Maker gets better because now you can get Renew off of it. Not that we're really seeing Priest have much play anyways, but maybe this change allows Priest to come back in a couple of fashions. I know that Jombre previously was running a sort of Banana Priest, and that was with 2 mana Renew, so this would help that a little bit. Not sure if that's something that will still be powerful enough in the meta, but perhaps this at least gives us a bit of leeway for that. And if not, if it doesn't actually allow for anything in this meta, it might lead up towards Priest having some options with the next expansion, which I think is fine. Again, not a huge amount of buffs, but there's a lot of playable cards, so I don't think they needed to touch... sorry, there's a lot of playable decks right now in the meta. Even if they're not top tier, there is some flexibility in terms of what you can play. So I think that nudging Priest a little bit is kind of nice, on top of having these 3 nerfs. Now, I don't think this change, the Priest change anyways, will actually get us back to the old meta where we're running Wand Maker, Scorpid, all the generation, because I don't think a deck like that is actually that good at this point in the meta, because there are pretty heavy win conditions. Pirate Warrior kills you pretty quickly. Garrett Rogue or Smite Rogue now will still kill you pretty quickly. So I don't think you can afford to have like a super control game plan, which as a control player I'm sad about, but I understand why we can't have control be good at all times. Anyways, hopefully this will slow down the meta a little bit, and not to the point where we're playing control decks, but to the point where we can play mid-rangey stuff. Elemental Shaman might get more popular, Paladin might pop a bit more. Basically anything that Rogue was suppressing, and to some extent Mage as well, can pop up a little bit now, which means that we might have more board-centric decks, which is, I think, something that people have really enjoyed, and I have been kind of asking for. So, knock on wood that when these changes come out, we'll see the meta start to flourish into a more tempo-oriented meta. Anything else to say? No, I think they did a pretty good job. Anyways, we'll be playing a bunch of Standard once this comes out to see what is playable, because we also need to prep for the Masters Tour, so make sure to tune in to stream. If you liked the video, and even if you didn't like it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell notifications. I don't know the YouTube stuff, I should know. Click the bell to see when I launch videos. Watch my stuff. You guys are awesome. Catch you next time.